Hello and welcome to the next in our series, an introduction to AI for designers. This is the third session. We start off with a tutorial. Last week, we had an extraordinary session where we were showing the work of a range of artists and designers, fashion designers, car designers, and so on, who are working in this new domain using AI and generative AI. Today, we are going to continue with a second tutorial, and the theme is controlling AI. Today, we're going to have a look towards the end at LookX, which is a diffusion model that is trained and controlled, as it were, directly by being trained on architectural buildings, as opposed to the more generic models such as DALL-E and Midjourney that are not trained on architecture. We will be having Wanyu He dropping in. She's currently flying, but hopefully dropping in for a brief discussion. Wanyu, as you probably know, is a graduate, was studied worked for OMA for several years. The company XCool, LookX, is named after that, XCoolHus. And Wanyu has recently been rushing around the world, launching this platform in the most astonishing way. So we will have a tutorial by Wilbur Yuan, who was studied at the Bartlett, is himself from Hong Kong, and who will be taking us through LookX. That'll be the third in our series. Right before that, we'll have Tim Fu, Tim Fu needs no introduction to those on Instagram. He's got an enormous following. Tim is originally, the family's originally from China, but via Canada, via Zahedid Architects, he's recently set up his own Tim Fu studio and left Zaha's office and doing extraordinarily well. Tim is going to show us some of the things that he's been generating, LookX, and other work that he's been doing as a kind of introduction to that session with Wilbur. But to start off, we're going to start with Carlos Bannon, who again needs no introduction. He's been extremely popular on Instagram. Carlos is one of the not only technically one of the most significant figures around, but also, I would say, from a design perspective, one of the most talented designers around as well. And it's great to have this particular lineup. Just to say something about this particular series, this is actually a continuation of an earlier series we held in February, March of 2023. The point about this world is that it is changing rapidly. Just yesterday, I found out that DALL-E is now connected to ChatGPT. Developments are happening all over the world at breakneck speed. And this is partly because of the principle that's been called, that was observed by Gordon Moore initially back in the 60s, that the change in technology happens at an exponential rate. In fact, Gordon Moore was looking at the way in which transistors on a circuit board doubled in their power and halved in terms of their cost every 2 years. That means an exponential change. In other words, not 1, 2, 3, 4, but rather 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and so on. So things speed up, and the future is upon us more quickly than we realize. Ray Kurzweil took that principle and applied it to technology as a whole. And what's happening right now is that actually we are far exceeding Moore's law. We're going even faster than Moore's law. So it is an astonishing field of development. We are seeing history in the making, and we are seeing new tools, new techniques appearing every day. This, of course, is quite extraordinary. At the same time, it poses quite a challenge. How do you possibly keep up with these things? Well, first of all, it means that what we were talking about a few months ago, 6 months ago, is now out of date. Things are changed completely, and we need to have one of these sessions to update it. But secondly, the question is really, who can teach this? And the challenge is there are only a handful of extraordinarily talented individuals who are leading the field who know how to use these tools properly. Most schools of architecture do not have one other person who can even possibly keep abreast with these developments. So we're using our global platform to bring everyone together and to bring in the best designers, the best instructors in this area together, because this is the only way really that we can keep pace with this and everyone can find out about the changes going on. And I'm really grateful for the very talented lineup that we have today, that for giving their time to this very important, extraordinary task. So I'm going to start off by welcoming Carlos Bannon. Carlos is from Alicante, originally from Spain. He's since made his name as a designer and has been teaching as a professor at Singapore University of Technology and Design for the last few years, and again has established himself as an academic, but also runs a practice based in Spain and Singapore. Carlos, I'm going to be at your country tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. Welcome. It's great to see you here.
Thanks, Neil. And well, thanks everyone for joining today. It's a pleasure to be back. Digital Futures is a fantastic platform. I'm happy to share again what I'm doing regarding AI. It's very exciting. It's as you said, it's very dynamic, very fluid. So we need to keep learning, mostly like every day, relearning, readjusting. I think now our field is really fluid, and we need to remain like that. So I'm presenting some of the work I've done recently and some of the past work because I wanted to bring a bit of more context to what I do. So it's gonna be a part in which I'm gonna talk about the fundamentals of stable diffusion and then possibilities that we can do as designers. I coined this small talk like more than words, as we are trying to take control of AI, introducing other kind of information, which is not purely the prompts. So we are introducing visual information, semantic information, and that's very exciting to me. So I'm focusing today in stable diffusion and control net. I think other platforms will be covered later, but I think I'm sharing basically my work on stability AI, and I put kind of a lot of time and resources on the courses I'm teaching at PA Academy, where I have been like consistently sharing like over 3 editions the control you can get using stable diffusion. And I think that also was for me a way to develop a more theoretical background, or try to structure a bit more the processes as I do, typically more intuitively, but when I need to break it down to explain, those courses are really, really helpful. So one of the things I do is to try to explore different processes of design, and this is an exploration that I teach the students on how to start with images that could be the seed of the AI generated images. So basically using prompt, but also using visual information, trying to achieve a certain result, guiding AI using visual information plus prompt. So what I'm very interested is in the process, in the flow, in the way that we can navigate. It's not just an automatic process. It's definitely a creation process where humans and machines are working together, and it's a constant feedback. It's a constant loop. So when I show the drafts and the sketches that we do now, they're becoming kind of hybrid. We have these lines over images created with AI. We have our own sketches, and then we try to achieve a certain kind of aesthetic, certain kind of designs from a different perspective, from a different workflow. So I'm focusing here and explain basic fundamentals on automatic in level 11, since it's a more introductory lecture on taking control with these platforms. And then this platform basically is characterized by utilizing different models, so that it gives us great flexibility to adjust what we want to create. We have different modes of creating the images, text to image or image to image. We can create different ways to prompt with positive and negative prompts. We can definitely modify the sampling method that could result on different speed timelines for the generation of the images, and as well different parameters we can modify. These are the most fundamental one, as the CFG, that will create images that are closer to the prompt that you want, or you can actually try to stay away from the extremes to get good results. The seed, as we will see later, is one of the things that we keep as a way to find control as we generate images. It's a random seed that determines the noise, but if we keep the same seed and we reproduce the same conditions, we will get the same image. That's why it's a very interesting value. And then when we combine our prompts with all these values, and especially with ControlNet, we're going to start avoiding genericness. I think one of the things that we avoid as designers, and AI leads us to, is to a very generic end. And when we prompt, sometimes we end up in a space where everybody can get. So we try to avoid that, and we try to do it, in my case, using ControlNet. So here I'm increasing the weight of ControlNet from 0, which is no action in the generation of the image, to 1, and gradually you will see that all these geometries are starting to get more character, like the faceted geometry of the roof, the light that comes from a certain position, people, materiality is getting more control and more characteristic. So this is because we are using guidelines behind. So in this case, we're using a very simple 3D model created with Rhino zeros. In this case, a very simple sketch that is very effective and creates a very convincing result when you see the image that is generated, right? This is a Z map that we can create almost immediately using Rhino, and the images that you can generate are extremely controlled. Then you can start varying light conditions, materiality conditions, atmosphere, textures, reflections, weather conditions. So then is when you start fine-tuning the generation of the image, and you can achieve extremely powerful nuances with the tool. So there are a number of controllers that we can use. The first one I'm going to show you is we're going to work with the Z map. And as an example, I'm going to show you a design that is done in Madrid from my practice. It's the first time that I tried Z map using ControlNet. This was a few months ago when we started. And then basically was using the original 3D model of the house. The house is a build project, the one in the left. On the right-hand side, you have the wireframe model. And then you can see how the consistency of the geometry is translated into the AI image. And we can change materiality conditions, keeping the same point of view, and definitely modifying parameters in the way we want. We can change point of view, we can keep certain materiality constant, and explore the design under different conditions, which give us really a lot of control when it comes to image generation. One of the things that really I think is quite different to other tools is the use of segmentation. So when we use segmentation here, we can start referring to a particular part of the image, but with meaning, with semantic meaning. So basically, we can refer to the facade, and because it's in a certain color, AI will recognize that as a region that we're going to modify with our prompt. So we can see in this small animation, we can see how the context can determine the materiality of the building. So by modifying the conditions of the context, the facade changes and adjusts to its boundary conditions. So that is done with segmentation. So we keep certain things constant and certain things changing. So this is how it works. Basically, we have a picture. It could be a 3D model, could be a photo, and then we get the segmentation image. We can pre-process it in Stable Diffusion, or we can actually create our image. I will show that later. And then here you can see variations of the image that originally was made from Peter Zumthor's home studio, and the variations you can create in a few seconds using Stable Diffusion. So for interior design, this is fantastic. At least explore options. So modifying with the segmentation, you can create images as the one on the right. And if we removed ControlNet, we would be getting something like this on the left. So this is a very generic image. So typically in Stable Diffusion, when you're not using ControlNet, the result tends to be quite fundamental, quite generic, so not so appealing. So that's why the combination of both for me is instrumental to achieve better designs. Actually, we can combine not just one layer of ControlNet, but we can orchestrate a sequence of them. And for me, is when it gets more interesting. So we have the segmentation, we have the lines extracted from the geometry, which is the MSDL algorithm, and we can combine in a new image that results in a more precise, the edges are kept, the objects also are kept in the right position, because understand the meaning of what the image is. and allows for many variations. And this is something I'm really exploring right now at different levels. I'm showing a very simple example today, but I have more things in the background. I hopefully will present by end of the year. So basically working with the segmentation to create designs that could be done very quickly by my students using photo montage techniques, using simple sketches, but then utilizing the color that pertains to the model that has been trained, right? So we have, for a chair, we have a particular color. For a table, we have a particular color, or the green 08FF33 is a door or a double door. So knowing that the model is trained for that, we can create very accurate models, and then we can generate images out of simple sketches, which I think can trigger many design possibilities. And in combination with other control-net models, the results could be amazing. Here, I'm combining both. I'm combining segmentation plus simple lines. So we can definitely guide the geometry. We can definitely design more details, but also keeping the meaning and keeping the geometry as planned originally, right? So if we look at how it works, basically when we have the segmentation in Stable Diffusion, we're going to use the segmentation as an image, but without pre-processing, because the image is already generated in Photoshop, right? We have the image already created here. So this image, when we have the color has a meaning. So that can be used as well when you render, which is also very important. When you're using 3D models, you can use a material with that color. So you don't render volumes, you're going to render the meaning of what you're doing, and then Stable Diffusion is going to do the rest. So for me, that opens like lots of possibilities when it comes to design at the early stage, utilizing the semantic information from the models. Of course, these can be combined with others like sketches at the early stage as well. I'm very interested in how to design at early stages. So these are the Sana Sejima drawings at the beginning of the creation of the Sherman Contemporary Art Foundation. And if Sana could have done this at the beginning, like getting really almost finished images of her ideas, I think that definitely influences the results. So I find this also a very appealing way to start a project, like starting from the end, starting from the last rendering maybe that you could have, and you still have time to refine, of course, over the design process. I also integrate Stable Diffusion in combination with Midjourney. This is from Midjourney 4, one of the images that became quite popular. So I started training kind of like the model with Kenny and changing the light conditions and modifying with the Z map to create a simple 3D model that was used to create a different point of view and to create other perspectives of the same prompt, but with different materialities. So for me, it was like, can I really create a series of images of the same design that I can change the conditions, or even I can change the point of view, and so I can keep consistency when I'm presenting my design to a client. So it's not always random, or it's always like changing too many things. So it's about taking control and somehow at some point where you have more certainty to lock things that you want to keep longer. So a brief approach now to Stable Diffusion XL and gaining control and quality with the new interface Comfy UI. Some of the images I'm creating right now are done with Comfy UI. It has some limitations, but it has really amazing possibilities because of its interface is very dynamic. So we can actually use elements that we can connect. We can directly modify the workflow, so that allows for very fast and very accurate ways of creating our images. It's extremely convenient. So this interface allows you for very, very fast iterations. The series I've recently created with this one, let me go back to the slides where it was. I think it was this one here. Yeah, so this series was created with Stable Diffusion XL and Comfy UI, and I was really mind blown when I started to see the images created. The quality, the realism of the materiality was something else for me. I was used to high quality with Midjourney, but I really enjoy the grain, the detail, even the context when I was working with these images and the construction in bamboo. The technology and the elements on the side, on the ground, are, you see the people, the preparation of the bamboo is really on point. The depth and how the image is so well contextualized. So Stable Diffusion with ControlNet and the new model XL it really creates amazing realistic images, allowing as well for high level of control. And you can see here in the Colosseum image made of bamboo. I was really excited about changing materiality, not just context, but let's say the materiality, how buildings could have been made in a more sustainable way or in a different, with different tectonics. And then you can see the construction workers preparing the bamboo on the ground. It's just amazing. I just basically think that the possibilities here are endless. Or even like looking at Björk Ingels in in a brick version, or David Escofidio in New York, creating like this very appealing volumes, or in Singapore, the Apple Store by Norman Foster, changing in scale and a very basic clay materiality. So also maybe just finishing a bit with how my journey has been recently on my implementation of AI in my professional design work. As Neil mentioned, I mean, my visibility increased a lot through Instagram, and recently I got more than 100K followers, which allows me, to say things that people can probably get, and maybe hopefully they land into more designers, into more people. And then I started collaborations with artists like Opaque, that now is very common that in Instagram you get a DM and then you start a collaboration with someone that maybe otherwise would be very difficult to connect to. These are a series of images that we're working on for an exhibition in Beijing. And then through some publications, I started getting in touch with artists that want to materialize one of these story cases in the UK. And through also publications in physical magazines as well, I'm getting to work on interior designs. This is also part of a prototype phase in which we are right now. I made this design, and sometimes you get surprised by the traction. This was shared and liked more than 300,000, and then 20 million people saw this image, right? So then a lot of DMs, a lot of requests of like, are you selling this? So of course, I had to sell it, right? It's like, I didn't plan, but now, of course, I'm working on the manufacturing of it. So exploring different manufacturing processes, and we expect to launch it by Q1 2024. And also exploring cute designs like this Stone Age mouse, since we are doing mouse designs. Also looking into furniture design, the Blossom chairs has also gotten a lot of traction, and a lot of requests from wedding venues to private clients that didn't want one unit or 10 units. Now suddenly like getting a request of number of units. So working as well on different materialities, and this is actually is a translation of the original design using ControlNet, and using AI as well to create the 3D model that could be the basis to generate something that could be 3D printed and eventually manufactured digitally. Also got requests from the AIA magazine to design the cover, and it was quite challenging because the timeline was actually really short. It was about 5 days to conceptualize and to make the magazine cover and the feature inside. So I think only with AI you're able to deliver a cover and a feature inside that the resolution is more than 8,000 points, and the quality and the detail and how deliberate the image is couldn't be done in a different way, right? So AI allows us to do more, to do it faster. We are working at a higher speed, and it's really a way to embrace these new dynamics in which we design faster and we make more decisions, and we do more iterations as well. Doing corporate training as well, I work with Logitech. They reached me to design mouse because maybe that mouse I designed was quite popular. And so I did a training for the company where we started exploring different opportunities to create design for mouse, for the keyboards, and more conceptual designs like these transparent or more explorative images. Those are all generated with some sketches, with some 3D models, and ControlNet. The workflows that we have done with parametric architecture, with digital futures, of course, and led to more publications. And coming up in December, the coming lecture will be in Germany and also in Costa Rica. So looking forward to share more about what I'm doing. And I think maybe just 3 things I want to share about it. I mean, I'm really excited about like the AI. It's not going to replace us. After working together, it definitely elevates us. It really unlocks new design horizons, and definitely we can reimagine reality and the way that we make things. And just to finish today, I just gonna finish with this video I shared. I think last time was in Milan. Team was there, and but I think it's a video that summarizes a bit of the control that we have when we use ControlNet. Even could be some simple lines like this can create a landscape, but the meaning can be given also using a prompt. So combining lines, creating fields of lines, you can design very complex spaces with control, with volume. You can articulate them, you can segregate them. So every line can have a meaning. And the accuracy of the image really follows the lines, depends on your setup of ControlNet. All right, that's all. Thanks. Thank you so much for attending this small talk, and I will look forward to the next one. Thank you.
Carlos, that was extraordinary. I'm really delighted to see the success you're having by pushing forward with these things. And it's for sure, we're seeing, I mean, I think what the comment you made, like we're not following the old rules anymore, we're making up the new ones. I mean, I think this is the important point. I'm not sure whether it isn't going to challenge us in terms of employment. That's another separate issue. But certainly new opportunities are coming up. And the way that actually Instagram becomes a platform where you get commissions is also remarkable. And you know, I just want to congratulate you on really seizing that chance, because I think the question of control is fundamental. As you put it, it's easy to produce something with the kind of the built-in kind of aesthetic biases that are in Midjourney, but they all look the same, right? They all look the same. You see people saying, "Oh, look what I've done! Look what I've done!" But you think, yes, but so many thousand other people. To really control that in different sort of ways is the vital issue. I mean, I try and do that through prompts and control it through prompts so it doesn't look like it's been done by Midjourney. Then you get people like Daniel Bolajan who's trying to sort of look at how you might coordinate some of these images together, because the problem, I guess, with most of these platforms is they produce one thing after the other, but not connected in some way. So the Corp Himmelblau project the Corp Himmelblau project is to try and get a north, south, east elevation that all coordinate, and eventually interior and exterior that coordinate. But the absolute key question is that of control itself. And I think we saw some remarkable, I was really taken by that video towards the end. That was incredible. So congratulations, Carlos. That was really, really amazing. We move from
Neil, 1 second. Do you want to answer the questions now or afterward?
No, afterwards.
But it won't be too late for Carlos?
No.
I can stay.
No?
I can stay. I want to stay.
Okay.
Let's try and keep the pace going.
Okay.
We're going to move now from one rock star to another, from Carlos to Tim, who also has an astonishing profile on Instagram, who's become a rock star in his own right and is now set up his own studio. Tim, it's Tim Fu Studio, I think it's called. It's great to have you here. Tim is now in London. But all of us seem to be sort of, I think, sort of moving around the planet, shall we say. Tim, great. Would you like to share your screen, and I will switch my video off.
Yeah, thanks so much, Neil, for the invite. I was very engrossed in the last one that Carlos was presenting, and very reminiscent of the last year we were talking about this subject matter, how to control the AI. So I think from my end, this particular conversation is very interesting because I've also had my fair share of the struggles of both trying to control such a creative and chaotic software, but also utilizing different softwares at the same time to see each of their advantages. So in the topic of controlling AI itself, right now, the main two tools that I'm using right now are Midjourney and LookX, which I'm sure Wilbur will go into in more detail. But right now, I think in order to compare the two, we need to talk about the advantages and shortcomings of both of them. So with Midjourney right now, I think if you compare everything, the aesthetic quality and the spatial resolution that Midjourney can produce is the highest, which is why it's mostly my go-to tool when I am trying to find creative solutions from ground zero, tabula rasa, like trying to generate ideas out of nothing and giving us multiple suggestions. But then on the other hand, we have to have a degree of control where if we were to rationalize a certain geometry and also have a certain spatial configuration and requirements, much like what Carlos presented with, with the control net, LookX as well is for me an architectural alternative where we are pertaining to the accuracy of the AI, allowing us to create something that is new visually, but it's based off of certain sets of modalities which are fixed. For example, using images and using certain things that are controlled, like volumes, geometries, massings, and even floor plans. And then finally, of course, I dabble into a bunch of other AI-related softwares along the way because as we can see in today's age, there are so many different versions of AI, different types of algorithms, and they're all racing to catch up to be on the front line. So from my end, I will present the main two that I have explored the most. So with Midjourney, it is for me indeed the visual mastery. Like it has managed to compose an image perfectly to me in a way that the geometry is so well formed. And even if you look at both the exterior and interiors, you will see, for example, here, the formwork patterns even matches the way the geometry should be constructed if you do important place concrete. So I think that's all sort of picked up by the the databases itself. So because of that, I think just visually presenting these ideas, for example, on Instagram as well, is such an interesting and nice way to sort of show ideas at such a high resolution. And with that, there also comes to be a lot of tips and tricks into getting it to do what you want. So I do have like a parametric architecture course as well. And that course is about like 2 days. So if I break it down to the very bare bones of it, there's things that you have to control and refine in the process of developing an idea to the aesthetic value that you're looking for, as well as the configurations. So for example, prompt crafting, where you're just typing a set of words. When you type a set of words, you have so many different ways that it can be manifested. So first I explored multiple results from a certain phrase. And then the phrases, the sets of words, I just change slightly. I add a word, I subtract a word, I alternate them. And even these little minute changes that you do in the process will change the output quite a lot. So this is sort of like the prompt crafting process that we talk about. And this process, sometimes it can take a long time because it's like practicing alchemy, where you're just throwing a bunch of words into like this pot of gold and you're just stirring it. And then you're just trying to see which combination really results in the recipe you're looking for. And it's not an explicit type of activity. It's very implicit. You have to find your way iteratively. And so once the process is finished, you have a generation that you think presents the visual aesthetics that you were looking for as an image composition, and also the tectonics of the architecture itself is expressing a certain type of language that you're looking for. So for example, if I'm, for example, designing a villa in the midtown of Tokyo, initially when you present the prompt, if you say something Zaha Hadid, like, it's going to give you a whole bunch of ridiculous looking curves, which is ironically not very representing of the aesthetics that the office that I worked at formerly would typically would like to deploy. So through that process, using prompt crafting, we find the right recipe of text. From here, you also have the control of varying it. And there's an art to that as well, right? There is the varying coarsely, as you see on the top, and there's fine tuning, varying it slightly on the bottom. And you have to like balance that in. You have to make those decisions along the way of the design process, how you want to vary it. And so this process is also quite exploratory until I get to the variation that I'm looking for, because I have set up the right text and I have set up the right visuals. And once I vary, it will gradually get to the results and the destination that was already preconceived in my head. So then from there on, you can still further improve such as you refine local regions, certain areas. You have, obviously, as architects, we want to perfect the geometric expressions. Every odd geometries that is expressed, it has to be intentional. So every curvature that we introduce in the design has to be purposeful. Otherwise, we would make it straight and make it simple. So those type of design concepts we keep in the back of our mind while doing these adjustments. And then we can go from something on the left, for example, to something on the right after this process of refining different regions of the image. So that's the process of how you kind of get into the human design aspects of this incredibly machine-driven process. So here we have on the image on the left, what happens if I typed in the prompt directly what I was looking for and without doing any adjustments. These are the type of images I would get. As I said, bit chaotic, whimsical, semi-Zaha Hadid-like reminiscent geometries. And then on the right, we have something that has gone through the process of my curation of the process of design. So I like to say, like, this is kind of like the comparison of what happens if you just allow the AI to take over the design process, and then what happens on the right if you instill your own human intuition as a designer to push the algorithm towards an incredibly human-driven process in the end. So there's a big difference once you incorporate that. And generally speaking, Midjourney is a very exploratory program, unlike LookX or ControlNet. So, like, for example, here is a list of projects, a group of projects that my students did for parametric architecture, where I've given them a single sort of prompt motif, a client requirement. So it's a honeycomb structured architecture that is expressed through a facade made out of, metal and glass, mixed use with office and residential. So that's kind of like the premise. And then all the students take that and go in their own direction with it. So I think it's quite interesting to see, something that is very fixed at the beginning as an idea can be expressed very differently depending on who is the user of this tool. So in a way, it's an incredibly human process that we see here that is manifesting from using this type of tools. And finally, using fine tuning, like the region variation inside of Midjourney now, which is a more newer feature, we can see how it's able to take a certain element within an image and give you alternatives very rapidly, but addressing how it coheses with its surrounding in a way that looks like it's a holistic design. So I think that's an incredibly powerful tool, and this type of tool will eventually keep improving. Eventually, I hope that we're able to, present a finished photograph and just vary the region locally, much like we would be able to do with other softwares. So that's the generals of Midjourney, which is on the conceptual side. Here on the little more detailed design development side of LookX of AI, we have LookX, which is incredibly much better to control. So, for example, again, with sketches, much like how Carlos did some of his, I would also like to explore through sketches, going directly to render just by plugging it into LookX and prompting what you're looking for. And because it's an architectural database, we are we have within reach highly industrial quality renders and the type of renders that we're expecting in terms of the style. So it works to our advantage within the industry of architecture. And so same goes with models. Massing geometries, we can complexify it, beautify it with perhaps Zaha Hadid curve-like geometries. Detail refinement, different ways for the architecture to be expressed with the AI, and also floor plans. It can be some rough hand sketch like this, a ridiculous looking concept. However, it's able to just deliver a somewhat feasible looking top-down aerial of a floor plan in 3D, just in a click of a button, incredibly fast. So with that type of idea, you can take it and get inspirations from anything. So I think that's a benefit of that. So for example, if you like, organic geometries and, biomorphic ideas, Here I've taken, natural forms like a pine cone or a succulent, and you just prompt a urban structure that is housing residentials, but is also in a very ecological environment, and it's automatically able to just translate that into the sort of design motif and aesthetic. So I think in some ways you could allow a whole plethora of ideas to be involved in your design process by inviting it as images into LookX. And in that regards as well, you can crumble pieces of paper and take a photo of it, allow the paper to take shape, and prompt Frank Gehry and let the paper morph into a Frank Gehry building. You could then change it up and say, morph it into something more like Zaha Hadid. And after that, finally, you could say, let's do something angular like Daniel Libeskind. So we see that there's so many ways that this can allow us to kind of reconfigure almost the approach we have as designers. In some ways, I feel we're almost like brought us back to when we're children, playing with tools, playing with toys, wooden blocks, when we were just taking these geometries and very manually, through our essence as a designer and as a human, feeling these things and presenting some new ideas very quickly. And with AI, these things can just be readily, potentially given as a solution for a certain urban context. So I think it's just about the possibility of what we can do with this. And these tools allows us to just think about how we can reconfigure a process of design. And also in the process of design and the process of production, there are also AIs that will eventually take over various aspects of our domain, such as rendering. I would say the rendering companies will have to think about how to progress in the era of AI when we're able to present a massing directly from our software, and it's able to generate a certain degree of realism, some sort of render based on our text prompts. And right now, this is just using LookX, and I'm sure the guys at LookX are working really hard to improve it even further. But you could imagine as we start to have these tools potentially as plugins in 3D softwares, we would eliminate a lot of the process that we have currently, like sending things to the rendering company, letting it come back, or manually rendering it ourselves for making design decisions. I think now it's interesting because this sort of visuals, to a certain degree of detail resolution, that is able to feed back into the design process. And I think that's where the fundamental difference is with what we have with this technology, is that these type of AIs is actually, circulating back to the beginning of the process, so that our design process itself is going to morph along with how we're able to produce these very finite and resolved solutions. So our design process will be informed by the AI as we design as co-pilots with the AI in many ways. So to get more technical as well, I try to see how that matches with parametric design and certain aspects. So here, for example, I programmed a parametric housing typology where I set an urban environment, and these units can be adjusted based on the terrace, based on how it inclines, and based on the size of the courtyards. So for example, all of these controls, right now, this is manual. So I give these controls to a certain type of what's arguably AI. If I gave this to, for example, genetic algorithm, such as here we see here, using Ladybug, it's able to calculate the parameters that we need to optimize. For example, we're maximizing GFA, that's one parameter. If we are optimizing for the courtyard to have maximum solar radiation, and we can quantify all these data and feed it back into the AI. And we can also maximize the, the views of all the units without obstruction. So they might be conflicting parameters. So we have to use this thing called multi-objective evolutionary algorithm. So here we have, for example, Octopus. And also for those of you that know, Wallacey is also another good one to use. So these tools allows us to optimize for complex parameters that are within the domain of architecture that is a requirement. So with that, the AI in a way controls all the opportunities and controls the parameters, and then explores the hell out of it, much faster than humans can ever do, because it's all the quantified data will then push it towards the best results. So simultaneously, once this optimization process is going, we could hook that up, for example, back into LookX. And what we're able to see is a quick visualization of semi-realistic results of how AI is optimizing for the typology and the unit orientation and placement. So that's all going on in the process, and we're plugging it into Diffusion AI. And that's really interesting to see, because now we can go into any direction, any angle. And as long as we keep the prompts the same, we'll get similar type of results. So we get to see that sort of optimization process taking place live as it's generating semi-realistic renders. And hopefully this rendering will improve as we go along the technological improvements. And so once the massing is locked, you can then explore different materiality, different styles. I think that's already well shown by Carlos earlier. And this type of things, we just allow us to give us more options, bring more to the table for the discussion of design. And this goes into the more detailed design phase rather than conceptual side, which is what Midjourney was doing. So with all that being said, ultimately, there's some other tools that I have been exploring outside of these two. For example, this one here is DALL-E 3, but within the Microsoft Bing. So Microsoft Bing right now is the one I can access right now. DALL-E 3 is accessible only to a few. I'm hoping to get my hands on it sooner than later. But these are the quality that DALL-E 3 is pumping out right now inside of Microsoft Bing Image Creator. And you can see that although it's not better than Midjourney, I would say, it's right now pretty much far surpassed the DALL-E 2's algorithm. So I do have a lot of hope for DALL-E 3 and OpenAI and the other programs that are all trying to bring their versions of AI. And with the DALL-E 3 as well, it's going to soon be within ChatGPT, which is a large language model, which means that we'll be able to control it through language. Much more complex than Midjourney, because with Midjourney, LookX, and all the program we have now, it's kind of like the text is querying the image, almost like a search engine, to give you a set of image as a result. But with Microsoft, with DALL-E 3 inside of ChatGPT, you're able to actually talk to it. So I'm hoping at some point we're going to say, I want one without this type of ceiling, with this type of flooring, larger windows, blah, 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 something more specific that you actually have that type of control over. So outside of that, I've also explored other types of AI that are concurrently being improved. So much like how the 2D AI had its own sort of renaissance last year, more recently we have the video AIs also going through that similar, I would say, that renaissance. And it's just really interesting because, for example, Runway ML is a software that you plug into the images that you have, and it's able to generate videos out of it. So for me, one way I take advantage of that is generate video walkthroughs of the architecture that I've designed with Midjourney. So very quickly, in a matter of a few seconds, you're pretty much able to get a little spatial experiential understanding of the spaces that you propose as a design. And you can do that with Midjourney images. You can do that with your own designs. You could do that with anything that you like. And even if there's people inside your image, it's going to animate the people. Not shown here, but it's incredibly powerful process to see taking place in a few seconds. So we can see how it's just able to actually understand a little more in 3D, the type of images that Midjourney has created, and actually give you a walkthrough that kind of really makes sense in terms of the representation in 3D, these objects. So I think overall, the reason I started my office, Studio Tim Fu, after Zaha Hadid, is just seeing the plethora of improvements in different aspects of the AI and how AI can take over not just like certain ideation phase, but it's really here to stay, and it's improving on all fronts, going from concept exploration to AI rendering, potentially to start converting BIM modeling, building information modeling. And that's when it can get really powerful. We can generate details and just automatically do construction documentation when large language models are there. So I think what we're actually looking at is AI kind of like a virus, kind of spreading in all segments, all sectors of our industry in that sense. Right now, Midjourney is the one I'm currently using to superpower the way I explore concept. And AI rendering, such as like this LookX like technology, will eventually improve to a point where we'll be able to utilize it very efficiently for generating resolve spaces that are accurate to our needs, and also things with ControlNet as well. And eventually with BIM, the implementation of BIM, the details and the construction and all those more extremely precise definitions and the quantitative requirements, that's when I think large language models will have that power to be able to actually take over in that aspects. I've spoken with various industry leaders in the past year discussing these things, and I've seen big offices such as Norman Foster's and all these big global offices. They're all actually, they're training their own models. They're using large language models to deal with like building codes. They're sorting things like that and sorting out policies and things. So I see in every sector and every subsector within architecture itself are all potential for the AI to take over. And so I think it's so exciting of a time that we live in. And that's why I'm very much heavily just exploring AI. And I know that firm like mine, I will absolutely want to benefit from all the potentials that AI can bring to our industry. So really just to conclude here, I think we're living at the very beginning, the nascence of this technology. We're standing at the cusp of something that's going to just completely take off in every segment, sector, and in every way possible. So I think the future is going to be very interesting for us who are in this industry. And we're just here to see where the AI takes us to next. Thanks for listening. Ooh.
Thanks, Tim. That was terrific. I like that expression, it has become a virus. It's certainly spreading everywhere. And I think this just vindicates the decision we had to come and put this panel together to bring in the people who are really pushing the boundaries of what you can do with these things. And both Carlos and Tim really opening up those things. I think one thing I would say is that, obviously, in terms of, let's call it creativity, these tools can really help in some way, but there's something that you can't really predict. You can predict the tool, but the creative ways in which people use these tools, that's something which I think is opening up and is shocking people with the kind of innovation and the way in which we can combine them and make these things happen. I think it's truly extraordinary. It is history in the making, and it's history that's happening at fast forward modality. It's definitely something that's going to have a huge impact. I like to use the expression that in terms of, we're just at the early moments, Ben Bratton has the comment that we're just in the silent movies period of, And if you think about it, silent movies, the way we went from about 100 years ago to what we've got now is just astonishing. And I think we're going to see that not in 100 years, but possibly in 100 days or something. What's happening is happening at breakneck speed. And it's great to be able to bring both Tim and Carlos here just to show what is happening at the cutting edge. Because frankly, if you don't keep up with it, you're going to be left behind. And that is becoming increasingly obvious. And how do we do these things? How do we teach these things? Well, there's only one possibility, and that is to take a kind of global platform like this and try and bring in the very best in the world to come and teach you what's happening, and then do it again in a few months' time, because it'll all be out of date fairly soon. So thank you, Tim. Thank you so much. And thank you also, Carlos. Before we move on to Wilbur, I want us to bring in Wanyu, who's literally landed. She's to parachute into this discussion, as it were, and just to ask Wanyu just some few background questions. I think one of the things that Wanyu I mentioned is used to work for OMA. X-Cool is based on a notion of X-Coolhaus, and now LookX, which is flipped around. It's like OMA AMO. It's the opposite. Has now been launched, and it was. I think it's now a registered company in the States, registered in Las Vegas of all places. And it's really the new kid on the block. And I've heard some incredible things about it. And I just wanted to kind of ask Wanyu what's happening now in the incredibly exciting world of LookX and X-Cool, and what are you seeing for the future? What is happening in terms of how is LookX being received? Wanyu, it's great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Neil. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just landed, so it's a little bit noisy around. But it was great to look at Team's presentation. It was a really interesting to see how architects work with it, and also Team. Thank you for your support. Anyway, actually, the last slides from Team was very interesting because architects, designers, they get used to or get to know AI. It's kind of starting from mid-journey. I mean, most of them. Before that, we already spent like 6 years to work on AI software applications. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So that was like a breakthrough for everyone to understand how AI can do things. But it's just the image in the beginning. As you may know that we have other platforms like Xcool Design Cloud or MIC Design Cloud, and those ones are not based on images, but based on 2D graphics and 3D models. And that software today is still not yet be adopted for the general public of designers or architects. I think that is something we still need to have a moment like a Midjourney or some other big names, or maybe also include us to bring this stream. But where does stream come from? We think it's from the global world. It's not just like what we do in the beginning, where it's just for mainland China. We have this platform and people are using it. But today it's more like we need everyone to integrate with it. So that's the reason, or that's the main reason we would like to have Xcool be abroad and have this to have this sorry, I need to do some passing through, done. To have this branch overseas called LookX, because that is something we think we can somehow to make people to understand what we do from a global point of view. So this is the main point. And we think the 2D graphics and 3D models really gonna be the next fly everyone need to take off. Yeah, just to be short for your question.
Thank you, Wanyu. It's just great to thank you for dropping in, literally parachuting the discussion. I think it's so important that there are architects involved in developing the AI software. We're not leaving it to everyone else. Typically, architecture just follows on and adopts other tools that have been developed for other industries. Now we have someone who is really pushing it. Of course, there are others in there, but frankly, Wanyu has a huge advantage. You probably know that back in 2016, all the Go playing nations in the world were alerted to the possibility of AI. What Kai-Fu Lee calls the Sputnik moment, when the States woke up to the Soviets in the space race and formed NASA. Suddenly, everyone in this Go playing nations thought, "Holy shit, this is incredible!" And it had that effect in China. And Wanyu's company, Xcool, was set up that year. The rest of us are beginning to find out exactly what's going on now, and we're all on board, as it were. But to have that advantage of starting back in 2016 and all cleaning up and all the data, and to have this as a base, and to have those as being fed into the large language model, so it's not just kind of a generic model, but focused on architecture. That is clearly hugely important, and has been to have an incredible impact, as we saw in Tim Fu's work. So so let's move on then directly to Wilbur. We'll have time for questions at the end, and there are a lot of questions already appearing in the chat. So let's move on to Wilbur, who's going to give us a particular tutorial in the use of LookX. Wilbur, as I mentioned, originally from Hong Kong, studied at the Bartlett, now he's part of the LookX Xcool team. Wilbur, welcome.
Well, thank you, Neil. So, hi everyone, I'm Wilbur. So, following from Carlos and team, I'm trying to representing LoX today to share our company's product and online platform for architects and designers, which I released last June, I think. So it's called LoX AI Cloud. I would like to start from a short video as introduction first. Yes, the image or the video I've just showed kind of cover most of our features. But to define what LoX AI Cloud is, we actually call it all-in-one architectural AI GC creation and sharing platform. It actually, for those that who are not familiar with AI GC, it's actually called artificial intelligence generated content, which is a platform, the PGC for the professional generated content, and UGC, the user generated content. And on top of that, we actually got three main features in total. For the generation, it's actually the AI image generation, of course. And also for the training one, it's actually the AI model training, especially for the architecture industry use. And building on top of these two features, we actually got the building an active community for the designers on co-sharing as well. So here I've also put the link for any one of you are interested in our platform. You can just try it later. So let me just start from the generate image first. So I'm trying to use three common scenarios to illustrate what we can do for designers. So the first one is putting initial ideas into real image inspirations. Sometimes it's kind of you have a very rough or initial idea in your mind that which is not very clear. And what you usually do is try to sketch it out or just build a simple model in Rhino. So I mean, you have to basically test a million times to get a good result. But in LogX, the platform kind of doing is short the design process with just a few keywords and also sketch, and you can get a very good AI image result basically. And for the second scenario is sometimes a high demanding client can ask for a lot in early stage, and we're still in actually some of the testing project is not protected by contract at all. So, but what LogX can do and can help is actually generate a high quality rendering by words or image. The detailed level of AI image is actually enough for facing early stage of the client communication, which is avoiding those like non-protecting contract, things like that projects. For the third one is actually multiple variations. Sometimes you kind of limit yourself into one initial ideas and can't really get it out. So LogX can actually generate controllable variations based on only one image. So these three scenario kind of what we imagine would help the designer or architect most in the design process. And so this is our main feature, start curations interface. So the first one is really quick in generation speed, and also is supporting different kind of input, and also that it got a flexible way of usage. And let's take a look of some of the good outcome first. This is a tower. We can do it really well. And for urban complex, and also for cultural buildings, which is like non-linear shape, such as curve or irregular shape as well, you can perform very well. And you can understand the spatial concept very well, like this university rendering. And also we can do urban planning in a large scale. And of course, we can do interior as well, like this one, kind of a hotel or office lobby. And also a detail finished office interior. And of course, for the home design as well. So we accept kind of two image input method. The first one is image to image, which is allowing you to input an image to generate the similar or related rendering. The second one is text to image, which just allow you write a paragraph prompt and generate inspirations. So let me get into a little bit detail of our start creation feature. So this two method is actually once you get in, you can see these two mode. The render mode is actually which is for people that want to have a quick start or kind of a beginner. The second one is actually called explore mode, which is allow advanced level of user to get more control. So I wanted to start from the render mode first. So it's actually suitable for rendering and inspirations that have visual draft like a Rhino screenshot, let's say, or a SketchUp screenshot, and also for hand sketch as well. You can provide easier access mode with less setting. And then we actually have three preset image type, which is 3D massing, the hand sketch, and also the realistic photos. And then actually under two design field, the architecture and interior. All these three preset image type is actually have conceptual and detailed settings, depends on what we kind of want to input. In the result, you can add the detail and also create variations. And also, of course, the render in realistic and specific type of style you want to generate, and also upscaling, of course. And then on the left-hand side, you can see I can actually choose a render mode over here. And then under the architecture setting and also 3D massing, and I kind of choose a detailed model And then on top of it, I type in some prompts, and also for the hand sketch based more basic image here, and then kind of generate a amazing image that's been shown in the right hand side over here with a little valley housing over here. And for the advanced users, actually the Explore mode serves as a very powerful tool that allow user to have a full control of our platform. And you can actually generate a inspiration that only for text, and you can perform really well. So basically, you can select a basic model as a foundation that have the sort of what kind of image that you want to generate, and also select a fine-tuning model that is for a better control in a detailed way. And then, of course, you can enter the prompt and also the reference image as well. And then, as you can see, I use a large model called LX anything here with a LoRa with a 0.5 strength parameter over here. And also you can see on this left image, I use a Rhino SketchUp, Rhino screenshot as a basic model into an image, and then the result is really amazing. So the style can be adjusted by the range of settings, and also as you can see, how the AI cloud platform have a high level of control under the performance of the image outcome actually. And then if we choose, for example, if we choose a physical model LoRa, that your style creation can easily switch to that kind of style, and with millions of different kind of variation of model image fits in minutes. And the overall layout of the LoRa can actually be considered with a choice of particular styles or a combination of style actually. And for example, you actually give a building physical model style over here. You can use into a different kind of materials such as wood and also acrylic, metal, etc. And then by using different LoRa, the outcome can be in different kind of styles, which is really powerful tool for designers. And of course, the AI cloud is actually work really well in unfinished site photo as well. This one is a bathroom image. And this is a unfinished kitchen as well. So under the start creation, we also have a fine-tuning tool, which is very powerful one as well. It actually allows you to paint the area with a paintbrush, and then type in a new design that you want. For example, here I type in architecture and wooden door, and then what the result came out is actually a nice wooden entry image here, which just allow you to customize yourself or tailor-make what kind of image or the result that you want. So for all the image outcome, if you like one of them, you can actually ask for more variations by using a button on top of the generation tool, and then just click OK, and then it will refer to that image and generate more kind of variations by its own. And then once you finish an image that you like, you can actually scale it up and download it. And then I've got another image to show you. This is showing so the video you're showing is the explore mode and also the render mode I've been told. And these two are actually the plugin of SketchUp, also Rhino, so that when you're working on the 3D software, you don't have to switch between windows. So you got a plugin for you to use under the work in progress. So there's a little comparison with Midjourney and also Logix. With the same prompt, you can see the image result in Logix fit the architecture taste really well, and also in terms of the very reasonable architecture scale as well. And then for another test of the public building with a curve shape. And also for stable diffusion with two similar types of prompts. And then as you can see, the result is quite different compared to Logix and stable diffusion. And also another set of image for the residential housing. Right. In the overall comparison, Logix AI Cloud is actually winning in a lot of ways, which is like a lower usage barriers and also a higher performance in feature richness, and also good for expandabilities as well. So to answer why our model, AI model is so good, it's because we actually collect a lot of industrial data in the past 6 or 7 years, as Wanyu mentioned before. And also we actually train our own AI engine based on this kind of industrial database. And this engine is actually effectively tailor a lot of application work we have been developing for the design industry, and also perform really well. And here we're actually talking about millions of level of data training and over 10,000 of times of training as well, plus our own self-developed deep learning algorithm. And then for the model training part, one question we have been often asked is actually, is it possible to train our own AI model instead of like using our platform's AI model? So the answer is yes. You can actually, in fact, anyone can actually train their own AI model here by using our basic AI large model, which has got architecture, anything, and also the interior one. So you can choose whatever you want by yourself. You can actually train your own LoRa model on top of this large model with a style setting, and also use it for content generations, so that you got 3 levels of different use in AI models. So you can also train models on like architect style, and also architecture style, and unusual style, and so on. And then so what you have to do is use your own data set or a search image online, but just be careful of the copyright, what you have been using in online image. And we actually recommend 10 to 20 image to do your own LoRa training, and actually support up to 100 image. So by putting all of them in, try to look for the image that is with a similar styles, and then put more image in. Doesn't mean it's better, but the keyword is the quality of the image that you have been looking for, which is as your own database to have a better result on the AI model outcome. So different parameter can be selected in the function bar over here, and then by using like what type of basic model you want to use, and also inputting by image type of the image that you are putting in, and then select one of them, and then select whether you want to do it style way or object way. It's kind of different. And then you can basically use the advanced model as well if you are familiar with the settings. And then the system will automatically run an image test set once the model has been trained that well already. And then you can see the model works well or not. As you can see over here, the strength from 0% to 100% is actually generally showing the model on top of the large model is starting getting effect by from 0% to 100% over here, and then in different kind of styles as well, with the same prompt. And then, of course, for the advanced user, you can also upload your own AI model. Our platform also support that as well, in a different kind of formats. So, so summarize again, for the model training part, we actually also have a lower user barriers and also rich in functions and also strong scalability as well. And let me play the Yes, the video is showing the model training part. And then for the one of the third main features is actually the sharing community one. It is what we call co-create and co-share. So on top of the creations and also the model training, we also got the two features on community sharing. So these are thousands of the different architects and also designers around the world, which is all their creation, which is upon different kind of styles and also different kind of model trained by the community and also on the model algorithm. And actually, you can use by yourself and on the model training as well. So the first one is for the image and the second one for the AI models. And then basically you can have the community interaction with like, follows and comment, share, etc. And then with the one-click button on top of the image interface, you can actually share to the Plaza, and also for sharing model as well. And then you can show a lot of different detailed parameters under the image or model, and you can learn from others. And then you can also use one of the features we have been developed underneath the image on the Creation Plaza, which is they generate the same by using other people's prompt and also the basic image, and you can generate a similar image and learn from them. And then I got a short video to play. Yes, this is the end of my sharing. Thank you. Oh, by the way, all the images and also the video is all on YouTube. You can check it out later.
Great, thank you, Wilbur. That was really useful. We've had an action-packed session so far, quite extraordinary, and I think this has been so useful. I mean, every single student of architecture, every single school of architecture in the world needs to look at this and follow what's going on, because the world is changing, and it's changing right now. Speaking of changing, I want to just briefly bring in Angelica Ponzio, my colleague here on Digital Futures, who I don't think slept last night. She found out about the connection that we was alluded to before between DALL-E, I think DALL-E 3 and ChatGPT, and has just begun to play with it. Next week, Angelica will be saying more about it, but this is a kind of brief taster, a kind of to next week. So Angelica, do you want to just give us a very brief overview of what's been happening the last 24 hours in your life? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I've been an alpha tester for OpenAI, and I already tested the DALL-E on ChatGPT as a plugin before, but then they just switch it off, and now they are slowly liberating the DALL-E 3 as not a plugin, but as a feature that you can choose when you start a conversation. Like if you put it here, then you get it here. It's gonna be like one of your options. Yeah, so for me, I just got it last night, early at night, when talking at the Discord with one of the devs of OpenAI. He was releasing this model for people that didn't get it, so that you just have to fill a form, and then they just got me. And then I start playing with it just to see how it was doing, and it's more or less the same that was working before, but now it's more precise on letterings. And what is most amazing is that it's going to like change the whole idea of prompt engineering, because you can write a whole phrase, and then it's going to either interpret what you're saying and make another prompt, but it's like a huge prompt. And you get like 4 images, and you can choose different things, or you can also say that you want something exactly as the prompt that you wrote. And it's going to be even more amazing, because they are slowly liberating the voice thing, the voice that you can speak with it, that you're going to be able to speak your prompt and it's going to respond it to you. But they didn't match the two things together. Actually, the voice feature is being released on the app, and also the image you're going to be able to upload images as well. It also it already does uploading, but with the code generator here, when you have it here, like the advanced data analysis. But then I'm going to try to show it more next Saturday. Some things that I've been playing with and working with. It's also copyright aware. When you ask for certain things, it said that you cannot do it because of copyrights. So it's really amazing. So I'm just trying new things to show to you next week. So keep posted. Thank you.
Fantastic, great, thank you. That's I just to mention, we have a session tomorrow on copyright. also in Digital Futures, same time. And it's with people, not with architects. This is with lawyers, academic lawyers from Harvard, MIT Media Lab. And I can tell you, this is going to be one of the most fascinating sessions, really super interesting. We now we don't want to keep this session going too long because it's been action packed already and not to take in. But just to say, we have the opportunity now of sending in a few questions from the audience.
We had two. Well, Carlos,
I can see. I can see this.
Okay.
Maybe if you're on YouTube, just put it in the chat and we can read the chat. So first question to Carlos. It's from Jan Qualis. Hi, Carlos. Do you train your own checkpoints, or what do you do? What do you recommend to use for architecture drawings? Do you train your own checkpoints, or what do you recommend to use for architecture drawings?
I mean, well, personally, I don't spend much time training models because I think they're really good models you can use. So I mean, I trade small LoRa's to just to check the consistency, and I did with just my work produced in my office. And it was actually quite nice, but I think the models that we're getting right now are incredible. So for instance, the one I showed today, some images are created with epic realism, and it's actually very, very good. And of course, SDXL is fantastic. So I'm using both as as the main models, and I haven't used more LoRa's for quite some time. I'm just focusing on those models and understanding them better. So yep, not much spent time in LoRa's yet.
Okay, there's actually a second question in the chat from the same person. Another question from me.
Yeah.
For me, that's me. That's
I see.
Angelica.
Okay, from Angelica.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, excuse me. Where do you specify the segmentation colors to materials? Where do you specify the segmentation colors to materials?
Let me see if you can share a screen, but I mean, when we use segmentation, there's different ways to use it, right? But typically what you do is like to assign a color to the image, and that color already has a meaning, has a word assigned. So it could be an object, could be glass, could be grass, could be sky. So it could be materials, could be elements that are assumed as an object, like a seat. So it's something ambiguous, but you need to somehow combine that meaning. So you can use the color, let's say for a house, let's say.
But where is that list? Where do you get it? You
Sure.
made the list, or it's already on the model that you open it?
Sorry.
Where is that list that you open it? Is it already on the model, or you made it and then you?
This a list. I think I just got it from, because this is when you create the segmentation, you're using a model. So in this case, I think I was using let me check the model I used, but was so the preprocessor you can choose, and then I was like the OFADE 20K, and there's documentation online on how, I mean, which color is assigned to that meaning, right? So that's a standard. So you can use that file as a reference, and then you can use that color to apply to the part of the design you are doing, right? So once you do that, and let's say in this case, I identify this as a building. Let's say this color is a building, the back as grass and the blue as a sky. Then you can change materiality by changing the prompt. So here I also use the lines as I showed before, but now in the meantime, during the presentations, I was changing the materiality. And this materiality, like reflective, using red brick, for instance, but reflective translation also on the windows. And here I was exploring the matte materiality, so I was working with red brick and matte materiality or clay. So basically, the segmentations remain, but the prompt is having more impact on the results when you in this case you keep the main color as building, and then you change the material. It really understand the material, or even you can change the scale, not going for paper or something like this. So basically segmentation, I mean, really understand the position of objects. So once you use the right, let's say, color, it really goes, the prompt goes where you want to go. So that it's a way to prompt locally. I mean, not always, it doesn't have the 100% accuracy, but really gets the prompt where you want it to be, right? So that's a nice one.
And you open the list from that model. You click on there, and then they come to list.
The list is an Excel file, so you basically need to just change the color, say pink color, then it's a bed, and you try to color that with that particular RGB color. So you need to use, you know,
I just wanted to know where did you get the where does
I
the
need to
list
find. I
pops
mean,
up from?
I downloaded
You can
from
tell me
the
later, and I put it on YouTube. No problem.
document. I can send you the link later. I can need to
Okay.
look at the that
Okay,
they have. But
cool.
it's basically a document you can get is online, so I can find
okay.
and forward to you.
Great, thanks.
No worries.
And there's a question to Tin, I guess.
Yes. Just find this the question. Angelica, do you want to read it out? I can't see it myself.
Yeah. Wait, just a
Oh yes.
second.
Okay. Tim.
I
Yeah.
found it.
Tim, how do you see the balance between human creativity and AI assistance in your role evolving in the future? How do you see the balance between human creativity and AI assistance in your role evolving in the future? Good question. I mean, maybe I think all of us could look at that, answer that question, or address that question.
Yeah, it's one of those type of questions that you always think about, and as the technology progresses, our answers may shift slightly. I think in the near future, at least, we can see AI much like a tool. This technology is here to aid us in doing things better and faster, more efficiently, help designers produce better designs, and doing so more efficiently by giving more opportunities and explore more options. So I think we got to think about AI as it's automating certain tasks that we feel can be automated by this process, while we as architects and designers hold the human values, which are fundamental to design, which cannot be replaced, I would say, by AI at the very least. So I think we'll have to kind of be the originators of the ideas, the curators of the process, and the final curating eye of the result as well for whatever the AI is producing. So that's something that is under the control of the human. Now, in the more distant future, I think that's where the conversation could become a bit vague, because if machine intelligence can arise to such an extent that it can overlap some of our human intelligence and intuition when it comes to design and thinking, then I'm not sure about the answer that I give right now would suffice in the more distant future, because, you know, everything is speculative right now. And just because I'm so surprised in awe of what it's already capable of in a creative endeavors, that I, at this point, won't think that I would be very surprised if it's going to continue overtaking a lot of tasks in both the creative domain and in the automation domain. Everything, I think, is potentially up for grabs in those senses. So where we are, how we define ourselves is human values. I think that's going to become an existential question for us to ask in the more distant future, when AI can automate everything, is where we have to kind of like, I guess, Neil, you would also have a lot more input in this kind of theoretical point of view about what we are as humans once AI takes over everything that we can fathom.
No, I agree. I mean, I think the key question ultimately is when, you know, and everyone, that's the thing you need to talk about. And when you talk about the future, what you've really got to take into account is it's speeding up. And I think one of the realizations that Geoffrey Hinton, you know, one of the kind of godfathers, or perhaps the godfather of AI, certainly of deep learning, of neural networks, he was saying, well, he predicted that in the future something would happen, but it was coming upon us quicker than before. Maybe I could just ask you a question, Tim, because you mentioned something that I also felt in some way, is that, you know, in some senses, going back to the kind of question, what has AI learned to do? You know, and Yuval Harari makes a comment. It's learned to write. It's hacked into our operating system. It's learned to code. It's learned to translate languages, which is pretty astonishing because it wasn't trained to do that. I personally think that it's learned to compose an image, an architectural image. Would you go so far as to say it's learned to design, or did you kind of alluded to that?
Yeah, I mean, if you break down what architectural design is, like what are we responsible for? The scary part is I can actually see potential future in every one of those the parameters that we control as architects to be controlled by AI. Like if you really think about it, breaking it down, concept design, overall aesthetics, that's already Midjourney's forte, sometimes many times beyond what we can do, and incredibly much faster as well. And then we have solving spatial configurations, optimizing for all these parameters, which, from what I showcase through generative algorithm and genetic algorithm, is kind of like the early stages of what that is doing. And so eventually you imagine that being hooked onto like large language models that understand the physical constraints, the architectural, the contextual, and potentially the cultural constraints, all of which can be and is already understood to a certain extent by large language models. All we just have to do within our imagination is just hook those things to each other. Like if that model is developed to such a point, like what task, if you ask any engineer, construction, what task can't we get AI to replace is the question that I really want to ask. Because at this point, I think if you really think about it, like everything that we're doing right now has a potential for automation and AI's machine creativity to take over.
That points towards the possibility of a certain challenge in the working conditions and so on. I kind of see that renderers are also already out of a job. So I don't know. I'm in a bit of a minority because I do think it's going to have a disruptive effect, a major disruptive effect on the architecture industry. But most architects don't think that. They both think it's going to be fine. I think Carlos said that. But you don't get the same impression when you listen to some of those who are working in the field, leading the field of AI itself, which is, I think, Mustafa Suleiman, who was recently at UC Santa Barbara, was precisely saying that. But anyway, I think we can't predict exactly what is going to happen. Do you want to comment on that, Carlos?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so clear right now, but I agree with Team on, I mean, what is not gonna be affected. I mean, that's a question, because everything. I found myself applying language models, coding, things that a while ago I was just doing myself, and it's just replaced in no time. The code is actually very complex, like related to geometric questions, like really special questions, and the code is so fine. So it tells you how quickly it's evolving, and then that it's no way back. I mean, once you do this, there's no way back. So for me is well, I mean, I don't know how it's gonna evolve in the next years, but it's definitely the speed of change is incredible, and we just need to stay on our toes and stay dynamic and fluid to adjust to stay relevant.
Yeah, no, I was a student in Cambridge when computers first arrived in the studios, and one of our distinguished professors decided that we shouldn't be using computers in the studio, which basically meant that a whole generation of graduates came out who were unemployable. And it seems to me that is the message. You've got to keep up to stay relevant, because otherwise you're going to be left behind. I think this is fairly clear. I mean, just the speed of automation, the speed of these processes, unless you engage with it, I don't see how you can compete. So it's I almost feel like shaking people and saying, listen, this is what's happening. You need to get on board, otherwise you're going to be left behind. There's another comment in the chat from I'm very bad at pronouncing names. Idoya Sagaseta Lassa. I think it's great that we got these names I can't pronounce. They mean we had impact all over the world. Is there any prompt process to get into the correct description for a better image generation? I mean, the sequence of words, types of words. Yes.
There was, but it's changing. So.
Yeah. Do you want to comment on that, Angelica, then?
Yeah, when I was using Midjourney and even DALL-E before, you used to write the prompts with like substantives and qualities, and then finish with some photographic quality. And I always like to start with what I want to do. Like I'm trying a small house, so I put to see what adjectives quality fix more with I want, as a small or compact. And but now with this DALL-E and ChatGPT thing, you just write whatever you want, and it's going to come out, and then you're going to keep trying. It's a new thing that we have to learn again, and I think it's getting, maybe it with one complete phrase it will only get some certain words. One thing that I tried before was to take this ChatGPT long prompt and put it on Midjourney to see what it gives you back as new prompts. So you can images and give the images and get a new prompt. So Midjourney still gets like more qualities and like isolated words. And but now this is a game changer, I think, and even more because you're gonna start talking to it. So you could just it replies you back and asks what you want and what you want to change. I just yesterday while I was trying, it always when I put a small house, it was getting always a 4-story house. It doesn't get the small house and the 2-story. So I have to try other things to see. So it depends on the model that you're using, what you want to do, and keep trying. There's no, the rules are changing. That's the whole thing.
No, that's this kind of scary thing. I have a question just for I think mainly for Tim Fu, but for anyone who's been using Midjourney, which is the one I've been using the whole time, we actually were expecting Midjourney version 6 to come out, and it hasn't come out. But this is my sense that version 5.2 has been tweaked and refined the whole way across, because I am getting much better results, much more crisp, precise results. Is it just me? Am I lucky, or is it actually the tweaking of the algorithm?
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I had this speculation as well, because they didn't announce anything, but about like around last week or a bit over a week ago, I started to realize the same prompts generate better quality, even though they didn't announce anything. But Midjourney tend to do that sometimes, where they start to test these beta features on the current version before telling you, and then they'll wait a while until the final version is complete. So during their last forum discussion, Midjourney version 6 is in the process of being developed, and as well they're experimenting, I think, in 3D as well, which I have no idea what that entails, but that sounds incredibly exciting if they're talking about text to 3D. So I think it's going to be very short time before we see the next version. It's going to be another gold mine for all of us image AI architects.
Carlos, do you want to comment?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've been more lately a bit more busy with Stable Diffusion, but I experiment with both, and I can also tell that there's no announcements when there are improvements in Midjourney. You can tell that there's like leaps that are somehow, because you prompt constantly, you can tell this. I mean, I don't know how many prompts, but I think I'm sure there's more than 20-30K prompts everyone here. So you develop that ability to tell those nuances. So I think in that sense, you also adjust your way of prompting. You respond to it as well. But I'm with Tim on that as well. Of course, I mean the next leap, I think it might entail some 3D generation. So I think it's the one we're looking forward to in some way. I mean, Midjourney has done the region and the panning and zooming. It could be rotating. It could be something that starts to get you more into the 3-dimensional space. But I think it's the next leap should be about that, and we're just waiting like that maybe overnight that leap will happen, and then we need to start like restarting again. So looking forward to the next restarting point. Yeah.
And if we're like Angelica, we won't get a night's sleep because we are so excited by it. But yeah, I just wanted to say one thing, and I don't know whether this is going to affect the new text voice too, because clearly voice is the next thing that's going to absolutely change everything, directly speaking to our computers, which was predicted before. In my book, I was predicting that, but actually we went to text, we went backwards in some sense, but now we're going into voice. So that's the important thing. But the one thing I would say is that, I personally think that the notion of prompt engineering is a bit of misguiding, because actually the way that prompts work at the moment, and maybe voice is going to be different, but is that it's more alchemy. There are so many associations that are caught up in these prompts, because basically the prompts are contextualized prompts. You know, they depend on contextualized data. So if, for example, the one I often give is, if I put in the name of if I'm asking for a building or something, but I put in the name of an Inuit artist from northern Canada, where Tim comes from, right? I mean, freezing northern Canada, it will produce a building with snow on it. You know, so you can't keep it so clean. There are all these associations that are in operation. Of course, that's how we as humans also operate. We think associatively. You know, we see a stove with a red hot hob, or not, well, a red one, shall we say, and we think, oh my goodness, that's going to be hot, don't touch it. So humans also think in this associative way, but it means that really we can't even understand what's going on in these neural networks. They are a black box, and they are full of these complex associations, which basically means that it's a form of alchemy in the end. To get the right prompt is almost a form of alchemy. That's what I think. As someone who's focusing almost entirely on words, I've not been trying out these other techniques, but it seems to be really complex and very, very difficult to fathom.
Just an example, I'm trying to make a biomorphic house in the Sahara Desert, and it just doesn't give it to me, because it said that the combination of words flags something that, and I asked him to change it and he can't. It just, I don't know what's going on. I'll have to try.
Yeah. No, it's certainly it's tricky. And the only way you learn, frankly, is by playing around with it. And I think this is what we see today, playing with things. And all of a sudden, you know, I think I just want to just throw this out there. This is a comment that was made by Manuel de Landa a while back, from Mexico, this kind of incredible philosopher, architect, whatever he was. I don't know, he's not an architect, but anyway, he's been teaching in New York for some time and highly influential. And he said that really what we're getting is a shift from the straightforward old-fashioned creativity or, you know, design to being creative with the processes. Now, I don't know how we use the term creative, but the point is it is about playing with the processes, and that's really what is emerging. And that, of course, as I mentioned, cannot be predicted. You can predict the tool, but you've got no sense of how people are going to use that tool. The iPhone comes along, and people then we get Uber appearing. Nobody had predicted Uber coming from the iPhone. We predicted the iPhone and so on, but ... Who knows what's going to happen in the future? And I think it's you guys who are kind of pioneers at the coalface who are really developing these new strategies and techniques that are really changing the nature of the field. We've got another question also from the same person, Idoia Sagaceta Lasa, you probably pronounce this better than me, Carlos. Is ControlNet inside Stable Diffusion, or is it like a plugin you need to add to the platform? Carlos.
Well, it's a component of Stable Diffusion. You can install part of Automatic 1111, or you can actually use it in other platforms like the now very trendy Comfy UI. So it's a module that you use in the Stable Diffusion. Yeah.
Okay. We've come up to 2 hours. I sort of feel we shouldn't want to make this too long, but this is great. I just wondered if there's anything among the presenters today, and including Wilbur, any questions you have among yourselves, because, you know, I think to have you guys on a single platform is really a fantastic opportunity. We've been exposed to some amazing ideas today that are transforming the whole world of architecture, and will even more in the future. Any questions among yourselves? Maybe just one point.
Hey, Neil, sorry.
Yeah,
I already arrived somewhere. Yeah. I as a kind of a developer role of softwares, AI softwares, I would like to ask what you guys want. I think this is a really good chance to ask our users, and what are you expecting for, the further? Yeah, of course, we know that AI combining with the BEAM could be the future, and yes, but how to integrate it? Like you want to really integrate it with the verbal language, or with the graphics, or with the text? This is a really detailed question, but it will guide us to do different product design. So we would like to know that. Yeah.
I think this is a great question. I think from the perspective of Look X alone, I think we can talk about where, for me, I think the next frontiers could be. Like, on one hand, like if you guys develop plugins, for example, that can be directly utilized from Rhino 3D or from SketchUp, I think that will already invite this program, this product to mainstream usage, and it will streamline.
Yeah, we already have.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a Rhino
that I
and a
need to find.
SketchUp plugin.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. Rhino as well, though. Don't forget Rhino. It's
Yeah, we have a Rhino and SketchUp.
Nice.
Don't forget ArchiCAD, please. I have a lot of students that want to use ArchiCAD.
ArchiCAD. Yeah, some
Yeah.
people also say Revit. So yeah, we are working hard on those.
Okay, that's awesome to hear. The other hand is just the overall quality. I think the number one shortcomings from that is comparing it to Midjourney. I think we have to acknowledge the competitors at play. And right now, Midjourney is really kind of the more spontaneous, free-form creative approach, and where yours is more to like detailing. So I think if there's a way that the quality of that algorithm, even though it's tracing off of your contours, is able to generate that sort of finesse that Midjourney has, I think that will definitely bring it to our forefront of the set of tools that we use. I think that's another point.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. Really good suggestions. We will try to adopt it. Yeah.
Carlos?
Yeah, for me, the what I would like to have from new tools coming, right, is like on one hand, similar to what Tim said, maybe put from a different point, but it's like we really integrate many tools together. I think we still want to do that. So how smooth that connection between the tools is done, I think for me is key in the creation. If you need to save a file, export, pass it to other tool, then at some point, because you need to do so many iterations, it doesn't work. You give up. So I think it needs to be very easy to automate, easy to flow. The data needs to flow very easy. And I think that's why new interfaces like Comfy UI is getting so trendy, because it's like, okay, it's super easy to develop. You can drop everything there. You can connect and plug. So you can pick it up just by dropping an image into your browser. So I think that an interface and the flow of data needs to be extremely dynamic, and also go well with our intuition as designers. So if we need to sketch, we need to find a platform where we can really sketch and translate that sketch directly into that moment, into that model. So I think it needs to be more natural for humans in one way, but also knowing what AI needs as well. So it's kind of a hybrid interface that I think we need to somehow create over time. I think for now we're using what we have, and I think maybe the next steps are going to be the interfaces that are going to be probably a bit different to what we are used to have in conventional tools.
No, I would second
Thank you,
that.
Carlos.
I think that, if you think about just in terms of the iPhone, the simple things like swiping or facial recognition that just make it accessible, seamless, and I think that's the way that we're finding things going. They're getting, the more advanced the technology, the easier it is to use. Although, of course, we need to have the experts who are kind of looking under the hood, who are doing new things. But I completely agree with that thing, and I'm sure it's gonna happen soon.
Yeah, I want to add on one thing. Is we always are facing this kind of contradiction, because when we want to make the tool simpler, it will lose the control for professionals. If we make it for professionals, it will be a lot of settings, controls, and it's not suitable for the general public. So yeah, in a way, it cannot be one thing, to be honest.
Well, it sounds like there should be two models, right? One for the general public.
Yeah,
and
that's
Look
why
X
we have
Plus
two right
for
now.
for Carlos and Tim and so on. Yeah.
But that's what Daniel Bolajan advocates, that we're going to use different models and not only one that does everything.
Oh,
Right.
of course. Yeah. I think we were also was also introduced that we have a 5 big large model in the base. You can select from different scenarios, but we also have a general one. And also we can like add on some LoRa's, even checkpoints to really combine them. And that is something, yeah, I think it's very interesting that people can find their unique, not only style, but a unique way to represent things. Yeah.
Just one quick comment. I had a question from someone asking how much is LookX free? It's free, I understand, for the first 100 images, and then you have two different scales, $20 and $40 per month for, yeah.
Yeah, it's a free for registration, and you will get 100 image, and that is kind of coins you can get and you can spend. But we also have a different versions. Now we only have the $20, but we are on trial something more for the teamwork. For instance, you can share your work with your colleague and without expose your data to the public internet. And you can also have your own data set to train your own models. So yeah, we will have a more team synergizing functions for the professional version, let's say, or team version. But it's not online yet. But this is something we are aiming to more fit into the architect's workflow and team synergizing. Yeah.
Well, can I ask Wanyu one thing? Do you planning to have to mix the other thing that you do with the Xcool, like the beam models with the image? How is it going? And this I'm sure you want to do it, but how long do you think it's gonna come up?
Yes, it's a really important question for us, and we are really working on it because the AI beam is something for the professionals we're always aiming to have. And now those like generative AI is more about images. We are trying to relink or convert the bridge in between. So currently we already have some program in Chinese version of LookX that we can convert the 2D elevations of, for instance, a residential into CAD. And also from this CAD drawing, we can rebuild or reconstruct the model, 3D model. So this is something, this is a way to do it, but also we can collaborate with the previous softwares we have as the Design Cloud and MIC Cloud. The MIC Cloud is for modular integrated construction, which is so high level of the beam details, which can be like a LOD 350 to 340, 400 for the manufacturing. So this is something we are already work with the factories, manufacturers, and now is the time to really relink the entire workflow. But we are only like had this breakthrough in few scenarios. It's not for every scenario, every typologies, but it's more for the repetitive type of like a residential hotel, etc. Yeah. So that is the starting point, because that is the most demanding typology on this planet. We need to do that first. Then we'll see what else we will. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
It sounds like the interface is the key question. How do you interface your model with other models? And
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me expand a little bit more. This is something I shared with Neil privately. We have our own data structure called AI-driven beam on cloud. This is a kind of so-called level 5 degree of machine interpretable content. Compared with the CAD is a machine readable document, and the BIM is a machine readable content. And this type of a level 3 are self-iteration, self-generation. And in this type of data structure, you are no longer doing so-called graphic-driven mode. So-called graphic-driven meaning we, as architect, we have imaginations, we think, and then we draw it. And then we measure all the lines or the graphics we do. And then we can evaluate it with the compliance, with the performance, with the economical aspects, etc. this is the old way to do it, because in the beginning, we only have our pencil, hands, that's it. That's why we're starting with graphics. But today we have another way to do it. It's with the data. So in the new way called the data-driven mode, you can input or key in whatever you want in terms of the GFA, FAR, the combination, ratios, and then the machine can generate a so-called in computer science called latent space. Latent space meaning there's a lot of options can fulfill the requirements, and then it will be represent as the metadata. And on the web, we can use a OpenGL or WebGL to render it out. So you have the data first instead of graphics, and the data representing a lot of options. And the machine can select perhaps one of the best in terms of some conditions and reference to you or recommend to you. So in this new type of way, there's the three key elements in it. The one is the model, like a CAD, you also have a model, 2D, 3D. And second part is the data. Beam have some data, but those data are not self-generated. It's like people key in into it. So this content, this thematic is not complete. And then the last thing, but the most important thing, we call it the rules. But this rules is not just the regular rules. It's contents, regulations, like code, local regulations, and also contains the general rules. For instance, if you are an architecture office, you have your own type of way to do things, your own workflow. So this is the kind of rules we are talking about. And third part of the rules are the patterns. Patterns meaning there's no certain logic about it, or something it's a very blur. We cannot really understand it, but we can train the model to find out this pattern through large data. So this is something new after 2016, because before that, the algorithms are not that mature, and there's not much testing about those, and also the data is not enough, as well as the calculation power is not sufficient, etc., etc. But this level 5, so-called machine interpretable content, it is the future of all industries, not just architecture. Yeah, sorry, maybe it's too much for.
No, not at all too much. And that's really beautiful. I mean, we'll be building upon this in a week, just over a week's time. We have a session on a panel discussion about AI and the future of the office that brings challenges as well as opportunities. Also brings challenges, and we have the president of the AIA coming. We have Martin Sicari from Foster and Partners. We have Wanyu. We have the head of the head of innovation at Ferrovial. We have an very interesting discussion, and I think that's going to be vital. Now, how is the office of the future really going to be working? And we need to gear up for that, because we saw today the future is coming upon us rapidly, and it's even difficult to even keep pace with it as it is now. And for sure, in a few years' time, it's going to be very, very challenging. It's both an exciting time, but also for me a slightly terrifying time. I mean, it's because it's exciting that really you think, what is happening now? This is the most extraordinary thing. We are seeing history in the making. I don't think we've been through anything like this in the history of civilization, I don't think. And this is being played out both kind of globally in terms of everything we're doing, but also particularly architecturally. And I think that it's going to have such a radical impact on not just the profession, but also education. I just want to flag up the fact we're going to have a session on AI and education involving people like Joseph Choman and so on in the future. We want to try and address that, because that is really the almost the most crucial domain, because those of us who are teaching, we're teaching the next generation to come out who are going to face this extraordinary future, and even more than the office. I think it's the educational thing. But this is why these sessions are so useful as informational sessions where people can get up to speed with what's happening at the cutting edge, not just of the the users of the most talented designers around, such as Tim and Carlos, but also those who are actually developing the software itself, such as yourself, Wanyu, and Wilbur, and so on, to see what's happening. And I think this is really what makes this so special, is this is a particularly architectural domain. It's an architectural software developer for architects, talking to architects. And even this discussion we had just now about what do you guys want, this is really what we're seeing. And it's just an exciting, extraordinary moment in history. I think we should try and wrap up. I don't know if there's any final comments. I mean, Gustavo's been putting comments into the chat. Nobody wants to say anything. I don't know. I would just simply say, tomorrow we have a session on AI and copyright. And I've got to say, this is actually one of the most interesting aspects of AI, the question of copyright. And it's not so straightforward. We're bringing in two specialists who are lawyers, one of them working from MIT Media Lab and one from Harvard, looking at the question of copyright. And I won't give you a spoiler, but I know what's going to be in this, and it's going to be absolutely fascinating. Maybe I could just ask my colleague Gustavo just to kind of make a quick kind of comment to wrap things up, because Gustavo has been part of the Digital Futures team, along with Angelica, along with Michael, along with Bavlin, along with the whole team of people who've been contributing towards this. Sarah, who made the images and so on, posters. It's a team effort. Gustavo, do you want to quickly sort of give a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you very much for everyone that participated today. Carlos, Tim, Wilbur, and Wanyu, and of course, Angelica. I think in the last week, we've had Mustafa Salman come, and I spent I think an hour with him speaking with students, and also at this really nice lecture with a computer scientist. And one of the things he said was that in his understanding of the trajectory of these evolution of AI, the 10x model for every generation, he's seen different novel ways that the model creates relationships. And I think that that's maybe what we're looking for, is when is the next, evolution of this technology when it comes to power? And then how can we leverage as a discipline and kind of as a research direction, this type of power to design and space and complex systems? And he had, quoting him through another professor, basically, AI still is not in the, still doesn't have a handle on complex systems. So solving the problem of different, like climate change would be one. And I know architects are really great at understanding systems and complexity. So I think for Wanyu, my question would be, how are you engaging that, I think, big question? How do you deal with engaging the complex systems or the complexity of architecture within your framework?
Yeah, thanks, Gustavo. Actually, in our design cloud system, it's so-called data-driven, right? I mentioned this. There's a lot of data inputs. For instance, the data is not just about the architecture itself. It's not just about GFA, FAR. It's also about what is in the surrounding. For instance, how many greenery there, how many population there, what type of a population they are, what's the traffic, what is the wind ventilation in general seasons, and what is the sun radiation, etc., etc. And all those are part of the rules. And those rules we can adopt through GIS information with the maps. So in our design cloud platform, we already have this we so-called site analyzing, and that is before the design. So when there's a site be selected on our map, then we will have those evaluation like simultaneously going on. And then it came to a very tricky question: is the user, I mean, mostly architects, they need to choose or not what we proposed with the the site analyzing. Sometimes, to be honest, they will ignore it because that might be not the best solution of economical aspects. Sometimes they do. And also some of our clients, they require us to review their projects with all those aspects as well. So we, besides the generative AI, we also do evaluation and optimization based on the classification of the drawings or the schemes. This is something we think it's very important because AI is not just for something you can generate. We can also use it for physical environment simulation, and intelligence agencies can simulate what is the usage in the future, and all those data can be predicted in a way to simulate what the future gonna be. So there's a lot of things we can do with AI, not just the generative to release some of our work, but really help us to understand the real condition and integrate it into our works.
Yeah, Wanyu, thank you. I think that is the territory that the computer scientists and some of the engineers were really focused on, is how do we look beyond the image or beyond the design, understand the full complexity. And I think we tap into the power of research and humanity's search for patterns. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So just to mention just briefly, Mustafa Suleyman is someone you should be paying attention to. He was one of the co-founders of DeepMind in London with Denis Hassabis, and they're really producing some fascinating work that's contributing especially to the realm of science. We're, as I say, we're seeing history in the making. We're seeing people appearing who are the movers that changes and things. And it's easy to think it's just someone like Elon Musk. It's not. It's actually the Wanyu He's, it's the Mustafa Suleymans, it's the Demis Hassabises of the world who are all working away on this problem collectively, this challenge collectively. And I, for one, find it absolutely astonishing what is happening right now. So just to repeat, next week we're going to have a session with Daniel Escobar, George Guida, and Angelica, looking at questions such as going from 2D to 3D. And then after that, on the next Saturday after that, we've got a roundtable discussion that's going to involve Patrick Schumacher and some of the leading figures who are working in this area all over the place. We have Revik Amadol joining us. We have Ross Lovegrove. And that's going to be an amazing session in itself. Plus, on the Sundays, we have a series of sessions which are normally on the dark side of things, but let's say looking at the challenges, shall we say, of it. And tomorrow's session on copyright, I guarantee this is going to be absolutely fascinating. The week after that, we have this discussion I mentioned before about the AI in the Office of the Future and the challenges that are in there, involving some very significant figures. And then at the end, we have Blaise Aguirre-Akas, who's one of the extraordinary people like Mustafa Suleyman working in the field, super smart, super bright, working in this thing. He's part of Google. He was one of the pioneers who really helped to bring the world of the visual to AI. He curated the first exhibition on AI generated art. He set up Google AMI, and he is absolutely fascinating. So we have an incredible lineup of incredible sessions, of incredible debates. This is something that's extraordinary. I just want to thank the presenters today. I thought it was such a beautiful session. Thank you, Carlos in Singapore. Thank you, Tim in London. Thank you, Wilbur, I guess in Shenzhen, I don't know where. And thank you, Wanyu. I don't even know where you are, because keeping track of Wanyu's travel these days is going to be astonishing. I am going to be getting on a plane tomorrow to go to Carlos's country, to go to Madrid to talk to these things, to Ferrovial. It's an incredible moment of change, and this session is so important. Please share the link for this session with everyone, because I think everyone needs to know about these things, and if they don't, they're going to be missing out on the key driver of change in the discipline of architecture today. Very, very inspiring session. Thank you so much. And thank you to the team that helped make this happen, the Digital Futures team. Really amazing what you guys are doing, what we are all doing collectively, sharing our passion for architecture and bringing these ideas to everyone around the world. So thank you so much, and see you tomorrow. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.